Hey guys, so spring is finally springing around here. I know for like the last 2 or 3 monthly videos, basically since we started monthly videos, I've been like, spring is coming, spring is coming. It actually really is. And again, I know if you're in Colorado and you're looking outside at the snow, you're like, this California guy is crazy. But here it's spring, and that means it's gonna be spring for you guys too. If it makes you feel any better, they make us pay an insane amount of money to live here where spring happens early. But we're mostly getting in there. Anyways, that's what spring means for me. What spring means for all these plants is they're finally breaking dormancy and starting to grow, which means there is a ton of work to do. Yesterday, me and Daniela started pulling all these old traps from last year off of here. And I've done most of them. I mean, it's hard to get all of them when you have so many. You can see there's still a lot. And then I throw them in this bin over here. These are all old dried Venus flytrap traps, which is just kind of weird and cool. I don't know if it's probably the rare place you can go see a giant Tupperware bin full of old Venus flytrap things. I don't know what to do with this. Stuff a mattress, put it under my pillow, maybe flytrap fairy brings more flytraps, I don't know. Anyways, they're getting ready to grow. I've seen a few little flower stalks around here. They always flower first, so you can see there's a flower popping up. And all these other little traps are just those little traps that they make over the winter to, kind of overwinter. And now we're getting ready for some real growth. Not too many new traps yet, but because they have that bulb down there with all that energy, they're really gonna blow up and start to get going. And we're blowing up and starting to get going too. Right now we're getting ready for the Sonoma County Orchid Show. We're really excited to be visiting that event again. We always love doing it. We kind of fell out of it during COVID and the move, but this will be our first year in many years of selling at the Sonoma County Orchid Show. It's here in Santa Rosa at the Vets Hall, and it's coming up at the end of the month. Daniela, when is the dates?
The 28th and the 29th.
The 28th and the 29th. Poor Daniela has a cold, and so she's got a mask on too, so she doesn't get me sick. But the 28th and the 29th, those of our local friends who miss seeing us in person can come see us there. We'll have lots of beautiful plants for sale, although they will probably just be starting to grow because this is seasonal. But it'll be a great chance to get some new plants for your collection. And we've built our schedule of pop-up sales that we're doing. For those of you who haven't heard, last year we started doing pop-up sales as kind of like a compromise, not being able to be open to the public anymore, so we can get out there and see our customers in person, and you guys can shop for your plants in person. And it was so successful, and we so enjoyed seeing everybody again. We're doing it again this year. We have to kind of span things out so that we're not, super overwhelmed. But we're trying to do some sort of a sale where we'll see you every other month. And I think here and there it's even a little tighter than that with the BACPS show and sale, which is also coming up in June. Anyways, I hope to see you guys there. I saw lots and lots of you there last year. And then today, we're just gonna look around at what else we're working on at the farm, maybe some fun potting ideas that you guys could do at home, and just check it all out. So the Sarracenia are starting to grow too. This marble on the stem, for you new guys, is gonna be its flower. Just like on the Venus flytraps, flowers come up first on American pitcher plants. It's largely so they don't eat those poor little pollinators that they're relying on to make new seeds. But over here, you'll see Darlingtonia country USA, and they're not doing very much at all. This always kind of surprises people, especially people who have not grown Darlingtonia before. We get a lot of questions when they don't start to move with the rest of the plants in the spring, and they just come up later. They just do. I wouldn't really expect to see very much growth on these probably for another 3 weeks to even a month, even here in California. I would say the flowers usually are up probably by May is usually when the flowers come up. And then again, new pitchers won't come up till after that. These, even though they're green and look pretty nice, the tongues are getting a little ratty. These were all made last year, so there's no new growth on the Darlingtonia yet. So don't freak out if yours aren't growing at home yet either. So like I talked about last time, we were hoping to do lots and lots of dividing of our collection plants, and we have been doing that. Tom has been so crazy busy breaking these things apart, and the Montasser is filling up those pots with brand new Sarracenia for you guys. We always sit on them for at least a month so they can root into their pot a little bit and kind of settle in. But don't be too terrified if it accidentally falls out of its pot in shipping. You know, when we break these up, they're losing their connection to that main giant rhizome that we broke apart, and a lot of the roots were on there. These will all have some roots, but they're going to grow most of their roots when they get to your house this year, because they've been broken apart, and that new breaking is going to give them a trigger to be like, oh, I need to do a lot more growth here. And so that takes a little bit of time. And we're trying to ship these to you quickly, because in a month, they're going to be 3 feet tall, and it's going to cost you a lot more shipping, and it's going to be a lot more work for us to get it into that box. And so we really want to get it to your house right now, because there'll be the least transition shock from that. They're coming up in their new place, and all their new growth will be there, and that means that growth will be suited for your environment. If we grow growth here, and we get like a couple big pictures here in this nice temperate house, then when it goes to your house, those leaves are going to have to go through some sort of transition to adjust to your new house, and that might look a little ugly here and there. So now is the perfect time to get them. But keep in mind, these things have a rhizome like a bearded iris. You can kind of see the back of it there. And for you guys who are gardening with other plants, if you've ever bought a bearded iris, you're really just getting a little chunk of rhizome and a few cut back leaves. And there's very few roots on them, but you'll take that home, and that first year it'll blow up and flower and be beautiful. And I guarantee you, this will do the same thing, even if it accidentally fell out of its pot on the way there. Again, don't freak out. I know I say that a lot, but that's the expertise talking. You know, we really know what to freak out about and what not to freak out about. And if this thing falls out, it's okay. Like, maybe I'll pull it out. Oh yeah, it's falling out a little bit. That's okay. You can see it still had roots, but it just doesn't have quite enough to hold it into the soil, especially when it's bounced around by the post office. Just do that. Push it back on in, put it out in the sun, set it in water, and watch it grow. And don't freak out. So I was just checking out this beautiful little dormant pot. What is this? Filiformis. Florida Giant. This is an old plant. We've grown Florida Giant probably for 30, 35 years. And we reproduce them with leaf cuttings, actually. So that means for 35 years we've been making these with leaf cuttings. Anyways, they're just starting to break dormancy too. This is their hibernacula, which means little dormant thing in Latin. And they shrink down to this little tight bud. You can see they were even a little tighter and woolly. That brown woolliness is all part of the plant. That's no pests. It's not mealybug. It's nothing. Don't worry about that. Don't freak out. Please don't freak out. Anyways, and these were all the old, long, sticky leaves that are still remaining, and it's just getting ready to make those new sticky leaves. Like, I think that's one just starting to unfurl right there, and they're gonna work their way up to being like almost 2 feet tall. This Florida Giant gets really tall. Now, one of the things we'll see with all this new growth in the springtime, and the weather finally getting a little warmer, and the days getting a little longer, the plants like that, I like that, but aphids like that too. Almost every single year, I would say, just around this time of year, the aphids will break out. And what's happening with the plants is another big part of that reason. So when this new growth starts, plant growth is fueled by sugar. And so it's just pushing sugar from its stored starches over the winter into those new leaves. So there's so much sweet sap in there. And aphids are like little horrible plant vampires. They stick their little mouths into the plant and they suck out that sweet juice. That's why their poop is so sticky and sweet, because they're just like little sugar little junkies. Kind of like me sometimes. I do have a sweet tooth, it's in cookies. Anyways, so this is a good time to keep an eye out for aphids. And you could even preemptively treat with them. Like if you're in a state where imidacloprid is legal, or orthene, or any other good systemic pesticide, it's a good thing to do right now. It gets absorbed by the plant, and you're way less likely to see any aphid problems if you treat that now. You could still use a nice organic spray. Those are usually more contact, and so then you're gonna have to wait for those aphids to pop up and then spray them. How do you tell a plant has aphids? We get that question a million times. Not that we're not happy to answer it every single time, but we do get it a million times. So aphids are a group of bugs, and they come in all kinds of different sizes and colors. I would say that their shape is largely consistent. They can be, as they shrink down, they can look a little bit more compact, but they kind of have a little bulbous pointed abdomen. They got a tiny little head on there, six squiggly little legs, and all of them have like a flying version, so sometimes you'll see big ones with little wings on there. Those are kind of the mothers of them. They give live birth, so they just start popping out little aphids right away. But in my time of doing this, I've seen orange aphids, red aphids, green aphids, black aphids. I've seen giant aphids. You're like, oh my God, that's the biggest aphid I've ever seen, which is still relatively small, but large. And I've seen some aphids that are so wee and tiny that to my getting older eyes, I can barely see them. But that shape is really important. The twisting of leaves. When the aphids are piercing the leaves, they're damaging the growth. And because there's so much new stem cells in there, and the plan for that leaf is all buried into that leaf, as they damage those new stem cells and those new little tips, they're creating this damage that's going to translate later into twisting and curling. And so filiformis should be straight up. If they start to like twist and go off that direction and like, what are they doing? And that's different, of course, than like a Cape sundew wrapping around to hang on to prey. This is like a permanent weird twist. If you see that in any of your sundews, your American pitcher plant leaves, your Nepenthes leaves, everything. And that's the other thing I want to say about aphids. Aphids will attack every plant that we grow here. I've seen them on Sarracenia and Nepenthes, sundews, Darlingtonia. I've seen them on the scapes of bladderworts. I've seen them underneath the leaves of Pinguicula. Like, every single plant can be susceptible to aphids. I will say that usually, like, if you see one kind of aphid, it's probably going to mostly attack sundews for a little while before it starts to spread apart and attack new things. They kind of stay a little host specific for a little bit, but you can see them on absolutely everything. Look for those twisted leaves, look for their little tiny bodies, but also look for their literal papery husks. I'm not really sure if they're like shedding their skins, honestly, if they're just old dead ones, but one of the things associated with aphids I don't have to show you here today because we don't have any aphids yet, is these little papery aphid husks, and they'll be all over everything, and they're kind of white, and you notice them very often before you'll see the hidden green aphids. So if you see that, if you see twisted leaves, it's time to get out the magnifying glass or take a picture with your phone and zoom in on there and see if you can see what's going on. Now, the good news about aphids is even though they are, you know, everywhere and they'll attack everything, they're relatively easy to get rid of. I would say mealybugs and scale are way harder to get rid of because they have some protections to them. Aphids are very soft-bodied, they're very right out in the open, and they're very easy to kill. A good organic spray is Takedown by Monterey Bay. It's pyrethrin, which comes from chrysanthemum flowers. I'm super allergic to it, so don't get it all over you, but it is organic and fairly non-toxic. It only lasts for about 24 hours though. So when you treat with Takedown, you want to hit them once and then come back like 10 days later and hit it again to catch any of those survivors. Because if one aphid lives, they can pretty much immediately start having more little babies, and one will become 10, will become 100, will become 1,000 very quickly. So come back 2 or 3 times and spray again just to make sure that you got them all. So last week we just put up this brand new grow tent. I call this like our NICU for carnivorous plants. Basically, this is where all the tiny little babies that can't make it out in the rest of the world start off until they can. I've done this, as I've said many times, for like 35 years. One of the things that still gets me so excited, and probably my favorite thing that we do here, is the planting of seeds. There's something about the magic of unpacking them in just the right way, giving them exactly just what they need, whether it's stratification or heat treatment or whatever, to make them sprout. And then just that amazing, I mean, it's a platitude at this point, but that amazing possibility of a new seed. You're just rolling the dice and you never know what you're gonna get. And in this grow tent are all of our Sarracenia and Venus flytrap seeds for the year. And in here, I guarantee you, every single tray will have several new spectacular cultivars that maybe every pot, honestly, that you guys will love. And that's such a fun part for me. So we have stratified these already. They were in stratification for about 6 weeks, which is cold and wet. We do that by keeping them outside. And then last week, because it had been 6 weeks, I bring them inside. We put a lot of water in there. We keep them very, very wet. And I like to mist them every single day, just slightly, to make sure that the tops of the soil never dries out. This is a key time right now because they're gearing up to sprout and they need absolutely everything that they need. There can be no stress at this time because even a tiny bit of stress can kill the whole pot. That's the delicacy of seeds. But It's so exciting. I can't wait to see what new amazing plants are going to be in here. There's my own seeds in here. There's seeds from Phil Felizi, seeds from Europe. I've really been trying to track down as many amazing new genetics from as many amazing plant breeders as possible so we can make them for you. The Nepenthes are really loving the new greenhouse. There's always going to be an adjustment period. Even when you move a plant from a perfect place to another perfect place, it's going to be different, and there's going to be adjustment. And that's something to think about with your plants that get home. Just because it goes through a little moment from being in a box and going to a brand new place doesn't mean that it was unhealthy. It just means that it's got some adjustment to do. You have to remember, a plant is never ever meant to move. It's just supposed to grow in the same spot. But what a plant this is. I couldn't walk past it. It's starting to make really huge pitchers again. This one is Truncata Wide Peristome by Loweye. That was like a giant one there that made in the other greenhouse. You can see this older pitcher is transitioning out because it's from the old greenhouse, and these new pitchers are forming up here, and they'll be used to their new home. Plants really can't change their leaves. It's weird, but like if it grew a leaf in a certain environment, it has to grow new leaves and lose those old leaves to adjust to a new environment. So don't be freaked out by that process, even on an amazing, big, spectacular plant like this. You'll have to forgive the fan in the background. This is that weird time of year of transition between winter and spring. I can't quite get the evaporative cooler going to cool it down in here because we're still seeing nights in the high 30s, and that's just a little too cold to open up the swamp cooler. So forgive the fans, I'll talk loud. Another part of that strange transition are the butterworts. They're still in their succulent phase, but in the wild where they grow, they would start to see some moisture. I recently saw a question on Facebook, and someone asked about, like, do you water them and then they exit the succulent rosette? Or do they exit the succulent rosette and then you water them? And the answer is yes. Just kidding. But there we go, thank God. But the answer is kind of yes. It's a little bit of both. Some of them are going to start making their carnivorous plant leaves like any second now, but they can't really do that with a little bit of moisture. So I've started to just gently sprinkle these. They're moving away from the kind of Sahara dry that we had them over the winter, and now they're just moist. Introducing too much moisture early on can certainly cause rot problems, so you don't want to be too wet, like they're not sitting in water yet, but they are just lightly dampened. And I'm going to keep doing that until they really start to get going. Probably by next month, I think we'll see a lot more carnivorous plant leaves coming out of the crowns of these succulent leaves, and I'll probably have them sitting in water by then. But again, if everything we do here, everybody wants me to say a date or like a specific how many times. That's really hard to do. Plants are full of nuance, and they are changing every single year depending on the weather and the seasons. And then in doing this for 35 years, I have some idea of what that window is, but it's different every single year. Sometimes we have a really hot winter, and like the Sarracenia will break dormancy 3 weeks earlier. And so what I really want you guys to do is enter that communication, reciprocation cycle of nurture where you're looking at them, trying to gauge what they need, and then giving it to them. And I, of course, can give you advice on what they need, but you're gonna have to look at them and see what they need. And that's the intuitive, magical part of plants. So that takes a little bit of time and expertise. Keep watching our videos, and you can time out with what we're doing to take advantage of my expertise. But I really encourage you, that's the goal. If you want to be an expert like me, you need to be able to look at these things and see what they need. Now I'm back in tuberous sundew land. The tuberous sundews, they're winter growers. So they're kind of getting towards, as spring approaches, they're getting towards the end of their growth cycle. Again, weather dependent. If it gets really, really hot, if you let your tuberous sundews dry out a little bit, they can go dormant early. They're gonna tell you. They are not subtle about this communication. You can immediately start to see them just quickly going brown. Like you can see in this stem, all of a sudden this one has gone totally brown. Another couple of weeks, these will do that too. And that's not from drying them out. They can tell from the temperature and the day length that they need to go dormant before that hot, they think they're in Australia, so before that hot Australian sun comes out, they want to be dormant. So just keep an eye on them. And individually, as they start to go brown, there's another good example in Ramelosa here. See these Ramelosas? These ones are going brown. So I'll probably take those out of the water like today. And by the time it slowly dries out, you don't want it to be like a dry out right now. You don't want to put it in the oven. You want it to be a slow drying out over the course of about 2 weeks to a month, because keep in mind, in the grand context of Australian ground, it's going to take a long time for that to dry out, even when it gets hot. And so that's what they're used to, and especially in a small pot, that can dry out quickly. So you want to kind of sprinkle it overhead and just gently ease it into that Saharan bone dry where it starts, the soil pulls away from the side of the pot. Lots of these are still in full active growth. They come from all over Western Australia, and even a few of them, like there's some in Tasmania and other places, all around Australia, but some of them are in different climates, and so you will see different ones go dormant at different times. And that can be kind of the trickiness of having a large collection like this. It'll take a little bit more watching than just having two, obviously. But yeah, so just remember, now's the time to start looking for them to start drying out, follow their lead, and then a slow drying out.
All right, so today we thought it would be a really good idea to talk a little bit about Pinguicula. So it's March, and this is the perfect time of year to do two things with your pings: repot them and take leaf cuttings. Just to be clear, I'm talking about the Mexican and tropical Pinguicula group, which is generally what we always are talking about. It's what we kind of do a lot of our focus on. They're the houseplant pings. There are two other categories, the temperate and the warm temperate pings, and those guys are generally ones that are grown outdoors. They also are ones that are less available in cultivation. It's not a bad idea to repot them, but I'm really talking about the Mexican and tropical pings. So I wanted to give you a little demonstration of repotting into adorable things like teacups, because we always talk about how pings are really versatile because they have very shallow root systems and they're very easy to water. So you can pot them into adorable things. So we're going to repot some pings today, and we're also going to take some leaf pullings. So why do we want to do this? A couple of reasons. Pinguicula, of all of the different carnivorous plants, are some of the most sensitive plants when it comes to minerals and salts in their soil materials. And those materials, though they start off nutrient-free, as they slowly break down over time, which is normal for any soil, they contribute nutrition to the mix. Also, even really low TDS water, which means total dissolved solids, has a little bit of salt and mineral in it. And that slowly builds up in your soils, and eventually pings can actually kind of have a failure to thrive moment if after 5 years you haven't repotted them and they're slowly building TDS in this soil mix. You'll see your pings suddenly start to shrink and just die. It looks very different than crown rot or fungus or anything else, and we see it a lot. So it's really, really important to repot your Pinguicula every 1 to 3 years, and when you're doing it, take your leaf pullings. So most Mexican and tropical pings go into this winter succulent stage where they stop growing these large succulent or carnivorous leaves, and they start growing these really tight, small succulent leaves. These leaves make for great leaf pulling, and you can make a clone of the plant from that leaf pulling. It's easy and it's fun, and you feel like a magician when you make a leaf strike with that. So in the wintertime, you really want to take those leaf pullings because they're insurance. Pings are wonderful, they're magical, but they're not long-lived and they can be a little fickle. So you can do your best, and you can still only have a plant for a few years. So if you're taking those leaf pullings, making copies of your plant, you'll always have more. You'll always have an insurance plan of your very favorite plant. And there's never too many plants, right? So like if you end up having too many, you can just give them away to friends. It's a really good thing to have that problem. So in the winter, take your leaf pullings. It's also much easier to take those leaf pullings when you have the ping in your hand as opposed to trying to hold it in the surface and pull the leaf pulling out. So that's why I recommend doing both at the same time. Repot and pull your leaves, and you'll have an ability to take those leaf pullings a little easier because it's a little bit delicate. As a side note, I've done a ton of videos all about leaf pullings and even more in depth about ping potting. So check out our feed, because last year when I was repotting the collection, I took like 1 million videos, and I did some different leaf pulling videos. So if you're trying to take leaf pullings on something fussy and small like a Sarracenia or a Lersier and it just wants to explode, I'm pretty sure I did a video about that. All right, so let's go ahead and pot them up into some cute stuff. I have this Queen Cthulhu here because it's a really good example. Isn't she cute? So you can see these bigger leaves were her carnivorous leaves. These are the succulent leaves. So the ones you want to take for your leaf pullings are always going to be the succulent ones. These leaves are very delicate. You don't want to bruise them. You don't want to tear them. So you don't want to just get in there and wrench them out. The trick with most plant work is going to be a combination of gentle strength. So it's like gentle pulling or gentle tugging. So in this case, what I'm going to do, and this is why it's easier to do this when it's in your hand. So I'm just going to get up into here. I have my one finger right back there at the base of the plant. I can feel the back of it. I'm going to put my other one in here I'm just going to gently hold the plant like this, but now I'm not squeezing. I'm just going to gently tug, and it comes right out. So what's really important is, I'm going to actually destroy this leaf so you can see the problems. And this is horrifying, but this is a perfect little ping leaf. This will make a great cutting. The problem is, if you were to say, I'm going to squeeze it. If you squeeze it too hard, you can't even barely see it, but it's going to be bruised. But if you were to say accidentally cut it, you can totally see right there, that little divot, that's going to make this leaf not viable. So that's why you don't want to squeeze too hard when you're pulling. That won't work. And you don't want to accidentally pull it in half like that. This could still work, but not as well. So you just want to be slow and gentle. We're going to do another one. You can take as many leaf pullings as you want from a plant. I like to leave a lot on the plant though, so it has a lot of momentum. So again, I'm going to get one finger right back in here, all the way at the base of the plant. I can feel it. I'm going to sneak my other finger in as far as I can. Hold the plant in this hand, but I'm holding it. I'm not squeezing too tight. And then pull. There you go. That's a perfect little ping pulling. Really easy. Now, my best tip for this is get yourself a resealable plastic container, like a to-go container from a restaurant that's clear. You're going to want to put either long fibered New Zealand sphagnum moss, preferably chopped up, which you can actually do in a Cuisinart if your partner will let you, or you can do a standard ping mix, which is very sandy and a little peat moss. You're going to want to put your ping leaves the right way, just like they came off of the plant, and you're just going to want to lay them inside that container. Pretend this is one of them. I was not prepared. I should have had one. Right on the surface of the soil or the New Zealand sphagnum. Make sure it's a little damp in there, but not soaking wet. Lay all of your ping leaves like that. They don't need to be buried, but they do need to have contact with the material. Then you're going to want to put the lid on, seal it up, and put that under a grow light off to the side a little bit so it's not cooking. Keep an eye on that, and you'll be shocked to see how quickly little plants are going to grow off the tip of this plant. Sometimes you're going to get a whole like ball of pings too. That's what's really fun and wild. But I like to do it that way. It's the easiest way, is to just a little damp media, lay your ping leaves out on top, seal it with the lid, put it under grow lights, but a little off to the side, and you'll be shocked. You're going to be like so excited and surprised by how many plants that works with. So it takes a little bit of time depending on which plant you're using. And the thing you're going to want to look for when you're ready to transplant them is, this one came off with a little bit of stuff on it, but they'll make these little roots, and you really want to be careful with those on the little baby plants. So that's actually why when you're ready to transplant, you want a material like the sandy mix or the chopped up New Zealand fiber, because those roots will not long, will dig into whatever it's in. And so when you go to transplant it, if you try to propagate your ping leaf pullings on like rock wool or paper towels, sometimes those roots get stuck and rip right off. So unless you are like have been doing it for years and you're really comfortable with that media, I highly recommend against rock wool or paper towels when you're trying to make your ping leaf pullings go. Just because if you're new at it, it's so easy to rip all the roots off, and that super duper sucks. All right, so now let's talk about pings and how fun it is to pop them up into cute containers. So you can see here, I have another adorable teacup. One of the great things about pings is they really don't have a ton of roots. So let's take a look at my Queen Cthulhu again. And this is gonna shock you, but this guy has like no roots at all on it right now. Sometimes they have a ton of roots, but even that is only this big. And they tend to be this sort of clear, almost like a jellyfish look, because they have this blob here and little clear roots down here. They don't have a ton of roots. And so because of that, you can really just pop them into all sorts of unusual containers. All of those really cool old planters from way back when that are strange shapes, small sizes, and have no drainage are perfect. Or again, go to the thrift store and find like cute things like this teacup. So what I've done is I filled it with our mix, our standard ping mix. All of our recipes and pre-made soil are available on our website. We like a very sandy mix for Mexican and tropical pings because they don't want to be soaking wet. And if you have too heavy of a peat moss mix, that's holding way too much moisture against their roots, and you're very likely to rot your ping. So this, while it looks super dry and sandy, is perfect for these pings, especially this time of year, because we're right in that horrible moment where it's March. So we're right in between winter and spring. They're also right in between their carnivorous and succulent leaves. These are going to start to grow more carnivorous leaves soon. But you don't want to water them too much, but it's a little bit warmer, so you have to really be thoughtful because you'll rot these if you water them too much right now. So a dry mix like this is great because it doesn't hold too much soil up against, or water up against the roots for too long. Now I filled this, as you can see, not all the way up. And why is that? I filled it and I really packed it in. I really packed it in tight. But I don't want to fill it up all the way because this is a non-draining container. That means that I'm going to have to pour the water in carefully on the side when I want to water, and I want somewhere for that water to go. I don't want to flood my ping and submerge it. So instead, I'm going to leave room on the side here, and then I'm going to carefully water. Another thing you can do is after you pot up your ping, you can put decorative rocks across the top, and that makes it a little easier to water in too. So it's really easy to pot pings, especially one like this. This guy, I'm going to make a little divot. I'm going to put it in here. And then you can go ahead and I'll hold it with one hand very lightly on the surface. And then I'll just poke my finger or forceps in here to gently push all of that space, fill it with soil so that it's really tucked in nice and tight. It's so simple. It's really, really easy to pot pings. I got you one other one so we can just look at it because this is species Guatemala, and this is what it looks like when it's succulent. These would be super easy to pull off, as you can imagine. When it's out of the pot, you could just easily pull that off, and you've got a leaf pulling to do. Now, before I repot it, I would look and see, and I might pull off some of these old leaves. But you can see here, not a ton of roots. And if you wanted to do more than one plant in your little ping container, you could totally put an extra ping in there. Do another little divot. I'm gonna tuck it in and do that same method where I hold it with one hand and just firm it in on the sides. I would actually mist these in this time of year with a mister bottle because I don't really want to flood this yet. And that's what I did with this. So this is another little teacup set that I have. And you can see here, I got a couple of lavender lacewings and a Queen Cthulhu. Now, just a side note, those are going to be really big. It's going to totally overflow this cup, and it's going to be a little bit harder to water, but I'm up for the challenge because I'm going to sneak water in under the leaves. So that's the other thing to think about, is if you're going to use really cool decorative planters like this, really look and think about how big that ping is going to get. So Gigantea makes a great one for something like this. It'll be huge, but you're going to have to sneak in and water in there. So if you're going to do multiple plants in a planting container like this, really think about how big they're going to get, or you're really going to make your life hard later on. But anyway, so those are some of the little tips. And like I said, I have so many in-depth videos in our playlist on pings. So go check it out so you can find out more on how to do these.
Well, that's what's going on here at Calcarn Farms in March. I hope you guys are really super enjoying these check-ins. I'm really enjoying teaching you guys about these plants and really trying to hopefully get to you guys to really understand what we do here and who we are exactly. These beautiful Cape sundews are really coming into their own right now. These are all Scorpios. The weather's getting warmer and they're liking it too. So get your chin up. Spring is right around the corner. Me and the Cape sundews swear.
Oh my God.
You're coming. Hey guys. So I was just walking by and there's a frog living in this tank. Let's see if we can hear it. Shepherd frogs. They're uncooperative. But there's a frog in this tank. and this little echoey croak as we walk by. I hope you guys heard it when we first started this video. Maybe we'll try again later. Lazy frogs.